it's your friend Josie, and I'm here to do a review of the Kuretake Granulating Watercolors, which are pretty cool. They do some pretty awesome things, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. I also have some critique of them, so we're gonna, cover all points of conversation about the Kuretakes. And we're also going to do a careful swatch. So I'll show you how I swatch them out and some tips and tricks that I learned working with these paints. And I'm also going to do a little project with you. So we got a couple of things to cover, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. If you like the kind of content I put out, a like and a follow and a comment can be so helpful. So I hope you do that, and let's dive into it. So here we have the boxes that the Kuretake paints came in, and it comes with 5 paints, 5 different colors each in these little half pans. And there's also a little empty half pan, which I guess they put that in there. I've already lost them. As you can see, they're not in there anymore. But I guess they put the little half pan in there as like a mixing tray or something. But I found that these need an actual mixing tray, so I just use my own mix, which the one sitting there on the left is one of my mixing palettes. The colors, as you can see, this is not a new set. I've been using this for a while, but not that long. So there's not that much paint in there, as you can see. And they all pretty much look like the same color from just opening them up in the box. They're very, very dark, which is a sign of good quality watercolor. That just means it's very concentrated and heavily pigmented. So swatching these out is a requirement because it's hard to identify what colors you're dealing with, and they don't really come in like intuitive rainbow order. So I found that I had to swatch them, and I'm using an 11 by 15 watercolor pad here. It's a Canson XL 140 pound watercolor paper, which is my favorite all-purpose, just everyday affordable watercolor paper. And I found that with these paints, to really get the full effect of the granulation that they offer, you need to swatch quite a lot and with a lot of water, because the more water you add, the more opportunities that it gives the paint to do the granulation. And another thing to note as you're watching me swatch these out is that you can only see the granulation when it dries. So when you're just painting them, when you're just painting as you're, wetting the brush and putting it on paper, it looks like a single color. But the magic of these colors is that when they begin to dry, the granulation, which is just the official definition of granulation, is when different pieces of pigment in the paint kind of collect and create a texture, like a pebbled appearance on your page. And it's heavily dependent on your paper. So you do want to use good paper for this, because you'll get a better result. And what's special about these Kuretake colors is that not only do they granulate really well as they dry, but they have shifting colors. So it's not just a single color that will granulate and create blooms and, cool marks and patterns, but the colors will sort of separate. So you can actually see it with the first one that I did there. As it's drying, you can see that it started off just looking like a medium blue, but now you can see that there's some purple and even some like teal color that's emerging as it kind of settles into the paper. And all of them do that to one degree or another. And so you're going to see it more and more as I'm putting these colors out. So one of the things about the Kuretake that I think is interesting is they tend to be a fairly opaque color, which sometimes gives them a little bit of a chalky finish. I usually prefer a more transparent color, but with the granulating color shifting colors, maybe that's just the way it has to be, and it's workable. I also found that they needed a lot of water. I'm using a brush that's probably a little bit too small for this. It's like a number 6 round brush. And I probably could have used a little bit of a bigger brush. And you can see too that I'm going back and forth in between the colors because I decided I wanted to add a little bit more water. And I'm swishing out my brush pretty well because I don't really want to contaminate my swatch. It turns out that the first set that I'm swatching here, I'm going to do both sets, but this is the Granulating Colors 2. They have 2 different color paths, and this is the one that I guess the release second. I don't know. But it has, the colors are called Cosmic Red, which is the one we're working on right now. And then the next one up is Cosmic Olive, Cosmic Green, Cosmic Blue, and Cosmic Violet. And so one of the experiences that I had working with these is that when the paints are dry, like they haven't been activated with water, they're just sitting there, they're actually a little teeny bit sticky in the pans. The paint is like a semi-moist, which is a fine thing. Sometimes that's a sign of good quality. And they take quite a bit of water activation. Like you really have to add quite a lot of water and really rub it in to get it fairly activated. But then when the water sits on it for a while, it becomes like a paste, like it becomes very thick and almost can be like overpowering. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're using these colors, is that the more you work water into them and the wetter they become, the stronger and more powerful the color will be on your page. So I found that the granulation effect did not happen as well unless I used a lot of water. So I'm really gooping on quite a bit of water. Watercolor will dry darker than it looks on the page. So that's one thing. And also just the way this paint works, it needs quite a lot of liquid to get it to do the granulating process. And sometimes that can even like result in water pooling on the page, because even a decent watercolor paper quality will buckle a little bit. And I didn't tape this down, and this is quite a wet process. Normally I would, suggest that if you don't want it to buckle, you can tape it down. And sadly, it still will buckle unless you're using a very heavy weight of watercolor paper. But when you tape it, it buckles a little bit less. But really, what it will do, the thing that's helpful about taping is that if you tape it when it's dry, and then do your process of painting, your wet process of painting, and then make sure to not untape it until the painting is fully dry, it often will revert to its flat state, even though it will buckle a little bit with the tape. And in this case, I'm not taping it at all, so we are seeing some buckling and some pooling, which in the case of granulating colors can actually create some cool effects, because the water kind of tends to pool, not just in the ridges and the tooth of the paper, but in the buckle of the paper, which, like I said, it isn't necessarily something you want, but it can create some cool effects. The set that I'm currently swatching, the 5 colors here, is from the original Granulating Colors set. And this is the Aurora colors. So it's Aurora Violet, Aurora Blue, Aurora Orange. I'm working on Aurora Pink right now, and then it will be Aurora Red. And, come to think of it, that doesn't look particularly pink or orange to me. It's more of a green color. But yeah, the titles don't necessarily describe the colors, although they do change quite a bit when they dry. And in a minute, I'm going to show you the dried colors, and we'll just talk about some of the cool effects that they do, because there are some fun things that happen. And one comment I have about watercolor is that this set, more than a lot of watercolors, really makes you let go and let God, or let go and let flow, because you can't really control it. You don't really know what's going to happen, and you'll have a better effect if you add a lot of water, but it's hard to know where you're going to find the granulating process and what the results will be. Okay, so here is a photograph of the colors after they've fully dried. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of a shift between what they look like when they were wet and what they look like when they were left to just dry on their own. And you can see definitely that there's some pooling action happening, quite a lot of blooms, or sometimes I call them crystals, where the color kind of like blossoms out. And I actually like that effect quite a lot. I think it's very pretty. But hard to control. So let's talk about the Aurora Violet, which is in the top left there. The Aurora Violet has almost, it looks like about 3 or 4 colors. It looks like a bright pink, almost like an opera pink. There is a really nice lilac color and a blue. And all 3 of those colors sort of separate out when it dries. And you know what? I love a purple paint. And so sometimes it's hard to find purple paint, in fact. So I kind of love this first set, the first granulating color set from Kuretake, because it has basically 3 purples. So I enjoy that. I think you could even call the Aurora Blue, which is the next one down, you could call the Aurora Blue a kind of a purple. It's sort of a browny purple. And the 3 colors that are emerging when this paint dries is a light blue, and almost like an orange. It looks like a corally orange, and then a mauvey brown, and it separates out in multiple colors, which I think is nice. The Aurora Orange has not that much orange, actually. There's a little bit of orange. There's kind of a teal green and a taupey kind of green gray, I guess you could say. It's more of a neutral. The Aurora Blue and the Aurora Orange are more of a neutral. The Aurora Pink is more of a purple, and it actually is quite similar to the Aurora Violet. It's a little bit more blue, I would say, and the purple is a little less fuchsia. There is some of that teal color that's coming through, some of the pink that's granulating out, and not a bad purple. I like this purple too. The Aurora Red, much more like a purple than a red. And that also has that pink that's coming through, some of that teal coming through. They must have used a similar recipe with these, because a lot of the same colors are emerging. And it's quite similar actually to the Aurora Pink, but I guess slightly more red. Then jumping up to the Cosmic Violet, that one also a little bit purple, but more on the blue side, with some teal and purpley pink granulations. The Cosmic Blue is a pretty decent blue with some orange granulations that I think is really nice. The Cosmic Green is a nice enough color. It's kind of like a phthalo blue or a phthalo green blue. And as far as I can tell, there's not that much duochrome in this color. It's a little bit of blue, but not a lot of shifting color. So it's not a dud. I like the color, but it definitely doesn't have the pizzazz that the other colors have. The Cosmic Olive is quite a nice off greenish color. It has some sort of citrus notes in some of the granulation and a bit of a kind of grayish purple, and a nice color. And then the Cosmic Red, I don't know. I don't love this color. It is red for sure. It has some like kind of a Naples yellow granulation with a little bit of purple. And I'm not a huge red fan, so maybe that's why I didn't love this color, but that is the last color. So, a couple of notes about the set. I think they're really great. I probably wouldn't use this set on its own. I would use it to supplement my other colors. I have a whole nother Kuretake set that I would probably just add this into, because it's not like a full range. It doesn't give me, it doesn't give me a decent like golden yellow. It doesn't give me a decent orange that, like a true orange. So I think these are colors that are really great, but probably not just on their own. Now I'm going to show you this quick painting that I made because I just wanted to see the colors in action. So I'm only using the Kuretake granulating colors in this painting. As you can see, it's a little faster than real time, just to speed everything up. I drew those, I don't know what you call those shapes, fish shapes. I drew those fish shapes on there, and now I'm just kind of filling them in. And I knew what I wanted to do with this painting was to make sure that there would be a lot of wet on wet action. So each shape is filled in with pretty much a solid Kuretake color, but then I'm allowing it to blend with the color next to it. I'm working pretty fast because as soon as it dries, then of course it doesn't blend. So I'm working pretty fast to make sure that everything stays wet. And you can see that it's already starting to do some really cool stuff. It starts to like ooze into each other, and then all that granulation action gets more and more pronounced. And sometimes some of the colors will blend together more than others. So sometimes you have to kind of force it. So add a little bit more water or kind of like tease the areas where they're meeting just to make sure that there is that bleed that happens in between the colors. Okay, so I'm going to wrap things up here. There's a lot of painting with you today. I hope you learned something. If you want to try the Kuretake colors, they are listed in the caption, and I totally recommend them. I think they do some cool things, and especially as like a supplement to a full watercolor kit, I think they would be great. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and we will see you again soon.